will be assisting you with the maintaining the decorum and to assist the honorable bench. The court master will act as the facilitator between the bench and the council. The court master will make the time moderation and argument and intimate the bench accordingly. My lordship is required to please seek your attention whenever it is required. As starting and the rules of law vs first national moot court competition, each team will get 30 minutes to present the case, including 5 minutes of rebuttal and sub-rebuttal round, subject to permission from honorable judges. Each team shall intimate the court master in regard to division of the speaker between like speaker one, speaker two timing. One of the speaker from each team shall be permitted for rebuttal and sub-rebuttal. So the order for the presentation would be like respondent side, speaker one, respondent side, speaker two, and rebuttal from the respondent only because the petitioner side is not present in the court. The judges may exercise discretion for extension of time for the oral round, specifying the rule book. The rule book provides that the extension of up to 2 to 5 minutes is permissible for the round. The courtroom for petitioner is TC 85, which is not present in the courtroom, and respondent is TC 65, which is present in the courtroom, which will argue for the matter. And I would like to request the judges for start the argument for the counsel 85, sorry 65 as a defendant for the matter. My lord, please proceed with the arguments.
Good morning to the honorable bench present here. So good afternoon, sorry, my bad. Good afternoon to the honorable bench present here. This is the researcher from the Respondents Council, and the timeline for the arguments will be 12.5 for each speaker, speaker 1 and 2. I request the courtroom master to take a note of the timeline.
The timer has been started. I request both the judges to please on the camera and judge the argument. My lord, please access your camera so that it could be recorded in the our record. I request the bench to uh, give the permission for the council to argue.
Good afternoon, Honorable Bench. Is the council audible to the Honorable Bench?
Yes, you are.
Much obliged. May it please the Honorable Court, the council seeks permission to address the bench collectively as bench and individually as your ladyship and your lordship. Much obliged. Your
Please start.
lordship. The council is here in the matter of Govind Das versus State of Uttar Pradesh, representing the respondent. With due permission of the Honorable Bench, the council seeks permission to start with the statement of facts.
Start, please.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. The Bake Bihari Ji temple in Vrindavan is one of the holiest Krishna shrines in India, drawing nearly 5 million devotees every year. Your Lordship, kindly refer to our respondent's memorial, page number 5, proposition of the proposition, and page number 7. In both of this, our fact is given. However, this ancient shrine is surrounded by extremely narrow lanes, dense residential clusters, and fragile civic infrastructure. For years, experts and devotees alike warned that such congestion posed grave risk, yet no comprehensive reform was carried out. On 19th August 2022, during the sacred Janmashtami Mangal Aarti, those fears become reality. A sudden rush in the temple caused a tragic stampede that claimed the lives of two devotees and left over 25 injured. Many of them were elderly pilgrims who had traveled great distances for a glimpse of the deity and instead met the injury and death. Following this incident, PILs were filed before the Allahabad High Court under Article 226, urging immediate intervention. In response, the state proposed the Bake Bihari Temple Corridor project, modeled on the successful Kashi Vishwanath corridor, involving about 8 acres of land acquisition, demolition of unsafe structures, and construction of broad corridors holding areas, medical facilities, and sanitation blocks. Your Lordship, on 20th March 2023, the High Court directed the state to implement the project, forthwith declaring that the preservation of human life must prevail over infrastructural hesitation. The petitioners have challenged this directive on grounds of displacement, heritage concerns, and lack of consultation. But the respondents, the state, submit that such objections cannot override the constitutional mandate to protect life and dignity, nor can they deny safe and accessible worship to millions of devotees. Your Lordship, the Council seeks permission to state the jurisdiction.
Please do.
Please.
Much obliged, Your Lordship and Your Ladyship. Your Lordship and Ladyship, this Honorable Court has jurisdiction to hear the present matter under Article 136 of the Constitution of India. This provision empowers this court to grant special leave to appeal from any judgment or order of any court or tribunal in India. The same is recorded in our memorial, page number 4, Statement of Jurisdiction. Further, the proposition at page 13, paragraph 13, reflects that a 5-judge bench has been constituted to examine the overlapping issues of fundamental rights, public safety, and heritage. Accordingly, Your Lordships, this jurisdiction of this court to adjudicate the present matter is firmly established. The Council seeks permission of the Honorable Bench to move ahead with issue 1. The Council seeks permission to move ahead with issue 1.
Proceed, please.
Much obliged. Your Lordship, I now proceed to issue number 1. Kindly refer to page number 10 of our memorial. Your Lordships, the issue 1, which concerns whether the directions of the Honorable Allahabad High Court under Article 226 amounted to judicial overreach. It is our most respectful submission that the High Court's intervention was fully within its constitutional powers and cannot be termed excessive. I request the Honorable Bench to kindly refer to our memorial, page number 10, paragraph number 1. The Council here reflects, has divided the issue.
Just a minute. Let me check.
Indeed.
Proceed, please.
Much obliged, Your Lordship and Your Ladyship. The Council would base her arguments on 3 premises. Firstly, it is given in sub-issue 1.12. Firstly, wide amplitude of Article 226 allows intervention in cases demanding urgent attention. Secondly, sub-issue 1.2, High Court's mandamus under Article 226 was a necessary exercise of judicial review to enforce the state's constitutional duty to protect life and heritage. Your Lordship, when it comes to mandamus, kindly refer to paragraph number 2. The writ of mandamus is mentioned under Article 226, which means to give a command. So to give or issue a writ of mandamus, there must be 3 conditions that must be fulfilled. Firstly, a legal right. Here, in case of Stampede, an undeniable breach of Article 21 has been done. Secondly, a corresponding legal duty. The state has constitutional duty to ensure public safety, proper crowd management, and infrastructure. Recognizing this duty, the state had already proposed a comprehensive corridor plan with budgetary allocations to provide a long-term solution. Thirdly, a prior demand and refusal. Even though No formal representation was made by the victims. Multiple studies and administrative observation had already highlighted the area's vulnerability, which the state took cognizance of by initiating this project. Now, concluding with issue 1, it is humbly submitted that all three elements of the writs were satisfied. Hence, the High Court was in a position to scrutinize and give remedy to systematic failure and endangering life and safety. Thirdly, your lordships, the precedents affirm such intervention in Vineet Narayan versus Union of India. This honorable court issued continuing mandamus when executive inaction imperiled public rights. Similarly, in the case of CAG versus Jagannath, this court held that the judicial directions were warranted where authorities fail in their statutory duties. Therefore, the Allahabad High Court's directive was not an exercise in micromanagement, but a constitutionally valid response to a systematic failure threatening life and safety. Concluding the issue 1, the High Court did not encroach upon executive space. It filled a constitutional vacuum, stepping in only because the state had not stepped up. Your Lordship, the Council, Your Lordship and Your Ladyship, the Council seeks permission to move forward with issue 2.
Respondent, speaker 1, only 5 minutes left for the arguments. Please continue.
Please continue.
Much obliged, Your Lordship and Your Ladyship. The Honorable Bench, I now here turn to issue 2, which concerns whether the proposed reconfiguration of the approaches to the Bake Bihari temple infringes the devotee's right under Article 25 and 26 of the Constitution. I request the Honorable Bench to open the page number 12 of this memorial. Kindly refer to paragraph number 9 and 10 for my upcoming arguments. It is a respectful submission that the redevelopment does not restrict religious freedom. It safeguards it and makes it meaningful for all devotees. Firstly, Your Lordship, Article 25 and 26 are expressly subject to public order, morality, and health. Regulation of crowd flow, circulation, and physical access falls well within these limits since it directly ensures the health and safety of worshippers. Secondly, the Honorable Bench, the distinction between essential religious practices and secular management is well settled. I request the Honorable Bench to kindly refer to page number 13 of the memorial, paragraph number 16. The case is given Shri Adi Vishweshwar of Kashi Vishwanath Temple, Varanasi and others versus State of UP and others. In Shri Vishweshwar and Tiklayat Govindlaji, this honorable court held that rituals are protected, but secular aspects such as entry, exit, administration and safety can always be regulated. The project deals with infrastructure, not rituals. The Mangal Aarti will continue, Darshan will continue, but in safer conditions. Thirdly, Your Lordships, this is not just about legal doctrine. It is about human dignity. Every day, lakhs of devotees come from across India, many traveling hundreds of kilometers just to catch a glimpse of Shri Banke Bihari Ji. Yet, because of the narrow lanes, many live without darshan. For the elderly, the disabled cannot even reach the sanctum. And the Mangal Aarti cannot be delayed or stopped. Fate does not wait. It is therefore the state's duty to make darshan accessible and safe for all. Finally, concluding this issue 2, Article 49 obligates the state to protect and preserve heritage. Redevelopment as seen in Kashi Vishwanath corridor both improved safety and rediscovered hidden shrines. The same is envisioned here in Vrindavan. Therefore, Your Lordship and Your Ladyship, the project strengthened faith rather than harming it by making worship safer, more dignified, and truly accessible to every devotee. Now, here petitioners confuse faith with footpaths. Your Lordship, true interference would be to leave devotees not stranding in dangerous alleys. Regulation of movement is not interference, it is facilitation of worship, so that no devotee is denied darshan on account of danger. Now, the speaker one, the council one, has submitted her argument of issue 1 and 2. My co-counsel would now be leading the issue 3 and issue 4.
Am I audible to the honorable bench?
Yes. Please continue.
May it please your lordships, the respondents seek permission to begin with the arguments of issue 3.
Please proceed.
Much obliged, your ladyship. Issue 3, which is whether the state's objective of crowd management and public safety under Article 21 justify large-scale demolition and redesign of an organically developed sacred precinct when less restrictive alternatives exist. Your ladyship and your lordship, the respondents submit that the state's decision to redesign the precinct of Bake Bihari Temple is both constitutionally valid and a necessity under Article 21. Our submission rests on 4 premises. Firstly, your lordship and ladyship, the state's primary duty under Article 21 is to safeguard the right to people for the greater public. Article 21 guarantees not mere survival but a dignified and safe life. In the precinct that witness lakhs of devotees daily, preventing stampedes is the state's constitutional duty. 2 sets of rights arises here: pilgrims seeking darshans and residents and business owners within the precinct. The state has balanced both interests by framing indicative guidelines, your lordships, which is in Annexure 1. Your lordships, please refer to page 20. These are the indicative guidelines ensuring lawful acquisition, fair rehabilitation and compensation in line with Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition Act 2013. This demonstrates that the state has acted proportionately and responsibly, safeguarding the lives of many while protecting the rights of the few as well. Secondly, your lordships, the topology of Vrindavan necessitates permanent intervention as temporary measures cannot overcome these structural limitations. The organically evolved lanes of Vrindavan are inherently narrow and congested. No amount of staged darshan timings or festival time regulation can overcome these bottlenecks. The state relies on the successful Kashi Vishwanath corridor redevelopment, where unsafe lanes were converted into accessible and sustainable infrastructure. Satellite images are annexed in Annexure 8, Annexure 2, your lordships. Please refer to page 23.
Please proceed.
Page 23, which demonstrates that transformation. The same model is now proposed for Vrindavan to ensure safety, accessibility, and long-term sustainability. Thirdly, large-scale redesign is essential to protect the sacredness of the temple by ensuring safe and dignified worship. Your lordships, overcrowding and stampedes undermine the very dignity of the worship. The principle of salus populi Suprema lex esto, the welfare of the people is the supreme law, justifies that individual property rights, though protected, may yield to protect the greater public good, subject of course to fair compensation and rehabilitation. The mechanism for compensation and resolution of disputed ownership is already detailed in Annexure 2. In Annexure 1, your lordships, from para 4 to para 6. Showing that the state is committed to justice while ensuring that the temple's sanctity is preserved. Lastly, the infrastructure redesign of Vrindavan is a constitutionally mandated necessity as less restrictive measures have proven inadequate. Your lordships, the tragic incident of 19 August 2023 demonstrated the fatal inadequacy of the existing infrastructure. These narrow lanes and unplanned layouts make stampede-like situations inevitable. Mere crowd control measures are insufficient. What is required is robust and permanent infrastructural design to guarantee safe and dignified movement for the devotees. This is not merely a matter of policy, but a constitutional obligation under Article 21 to provide and to prevent unavoidable loss of life. In conclusion, your lordships, the redesign plan backed by Annexure 1, which is on page number 20, containing rehabilitation guidelines, and Annexure 2, which is on page number 23, containing comparative maps and the compensation framework, is proportionate, transparent, and constitutionally mandated. It secures the right to life of lakhs of devotees while balancing the rights of residents under Article 300A. The state's action must therefore be upheld as valid, necessary, and in furtherance of constitutional guarantees, Your Lordship. The Council seek permission to begin with issue 4.
Please proceed.
Much obliged, Your Ladyship. Issue 4 is whether the state's planning and execution of the Bake Bihari Temple corridor project, including public consultation, is consistent with Article 40. The respondents respectfully submit that the planning and execution of the Bake Bihari Temple corridor project, including the process of public consultation, is fully consistent with the guarantees of equality under Article 14. The argument rests on two broad premises. Firstly, that the state's planning of the project is based on rational objective of public safety and crowd management and is therefore free from arbitrariness. And secondly, that the state's planning and consultation process is transparent and inclusive, and that the petitioner's challenge is both premature and possibly time-barred. Your Lordships, on the first premise, the law is well settled that arbitrariness is very antithesis of Article 14. In E.P. Royappa versus State of Tamil Nadu, Your Lordship, please refer to page number 17, para 36 for this.
Please proceed.
This honorable court laid down that arbitrariness is violative of equality. For equality is a dynamic concept that strikes as whimsical and capricious actions of the state. Applying that test here in this matter, the decision to plan and execute the Bake Bihari Temple corridor project cannot be said to be arbitrary because it is rooted in rational objective of protecting lives and ensuring better crowd management. It is not a speculative concern, Your Lordships. The tragic Stampede incidents of August 2023 is fictional, hypothetical in the mood problem, but council took initiative and found that the stampede happened in real life as widely reported in national dailies, including the Times of India, which demonstrates the urgent need for permanent structural reforms. The narrow lanes and the lack of emergency exits and absence of crowd dispersal mechanism directly endangered lives. The state therefore acted not on a whim, but in discharge of its constitutional obligation under Article 21 to safeguard the right to life and personal safety. Thus, the decision is not arbitrary, it is both rational and necessary. Your Lordships, turning to the second premise, the state's planning and consultation process meets the constitutional requirements of transparency and inclusiveness under Article 40. The petitioner's challenge rests upon a conditional and speculative claim. I'm audible to the Honorable Bench, Your Lordships?
Yes, you are.
Much obliged. The petitioner's challenge rests upon a conditional and speculative claim that violations would occur if assessments were not conducted. Please refer to page number 18, para 38 for this, Your Lordships.
Please continue.
This if is critical, Your Lordships. The statutory framework under the Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act 2013, particularly in section 4 to 6, expressly provides that the social impact assessment, including environmental impact and public hearings, must be completed within 6 months of commencement. At the time of filing, this statutory period had not yet lapsed. The Allahabad High Court permitted the project on 20th March 2023. Even if the state hypothetically commenced the process on the very next day, the 6-month window under this section would run until 21st September 2023. Therefore, any allegations that the process had not been completed before that date is premature. The law itself affords that state the time, and until that statutory window closes, no presumption of illegality or arbitrariness can be drawn. Moreover, Your Lordships, the project is not being executed in secrecy. The social impact assessment process, by its very design, is participatory. It mandates public hearings, local consultations, and transparency in environmental and social evaluations. The allegations that such consultation was absent is both unfounded and premature, as the statutory timeline itself had not expired. In fact, the presumption under law must be that the state, being bound by statute, will adhere to the mandatory process. Additionally, the challenge is not only premature but possibly time barred. Article 136 provides a limitation period of 90 days to file a SLP against the High Court's order. The Allahabad High Court's judgment was pronounced on 28th March 2023. The SLP ought to have been filed within 90 days from the date. The moot record does not disclose the filing date of the SLP, raising the serious procedural issue that the challenge may itself be barred by limitation. The court has consistently held that litigants must come within the period prescribed unless sufficient cause is shown, and absent such disclosure, the petition cannot be entertained. Thus, your lordships, both on substantive and procedural grounds, the state's case stands firm. Substantively, the project is based on rational objectives of public safety and crowd management, consistent with the principle in EP Royappa case. Procedurally, the consultation process is transparent, inclusive, and within the statutory framework of the Act. The petition is speculative, premature, and possibly time-barred under Article 136, your lordships. In conclusion, the respondents respectfully submit that the state's planning and execution of the Bake Bihari Temple Corridor project, including the public consultation process, is fully consistent with Article 14, being rational, non-arbitrary, transparent, and in strict compliance with statutory time. The petitioner's challenge, on the other hand, deserves to be dismissed for want of merit and procedural compliance, your lordships. If the honorable bench is satisfied, counsel seeks permission to begin with the prayer.
Please proceed.
Much obliged, your lordships. In light of the facts, issues, arguments, and authorities placed before this honorable court, the respondent humbly prays that the approval of the Bake Bihari Temple Corridor project, including its consultation and assessment processes, be upheld as lawful and consistent with statutory provisions. Further, that the guidelines of the state be sustained, subject to such modifications or directions as your lordships may deem fit in the interest of public safety, heritage, preservation, and procedural compliances, or pass any other order in equity, justice, and good conscience. And for this act of kindness of your lordships, the respondent shall, as duty bound, ever pray.
Hello.
Is the court master here?
Hello. Are the counsels for respondent audible to the room master and the judges?
Hello.
Hello.
Is counsel facing an issue? Hello.
We have
Yeah.
submitted our oral arguments and done the prayer.
Okay. My lordship, please, I request my lordship to give the feedbacks to the council so that they could proceed with the argument and conclude the argument for the session. My lordship, please give the feedback to the team, to the council, so that the argument could be concluded.
In my views, both the councils have presented themselves with a very effective and their arguments were very effective and to the point.
Much obliged, your lordship. Your ladyship, do we have any feedbacks from your end?
Yes. Mr. Courtmaster, am I allowed to ask a couple of questions from the speakers? If the speakers are ready for some questions?
Sure, ma'am. Ma'am, you can.
Yes. So the speakers have elaborated in depth as to how the Honorable High Court has the power to exercise its jurisdiction and intervene in something that is very legislative and executive in nature. Now, are the speakers aware about Article 19(1)(g), Article 25, Article 26, Article 48A, 51AG? Should I repeat myself?
Yes, ma'am, we are aware.
So can you tell me with a little bit of, in a very short statement, as to how the defendant proposes that Article 19(1)(g), Article 25 and 26, Article 48A, Article 51AG will not be violative?
Your ladyship, kindly refer to our memorial, page number 12. In 2.1, it's already submitted, paragraph number 11.
Page number, please repeat.
Page number 12, paragraph number 11.
Can you give me what do you understand by Article 25 and 26? Because this, what you've given in your memorandum, is more of an academic in nature. Give me correlating with the situation at hand as to how the defendant proposes that Article 25 and 26. Let's start with only 25 and 26 are not violative.
Ma- Indeed, your ladyship. Article 25 is about the freedom of concise and free profession, practice, and propagation of religion. And here, the Council for Respondent is talking about when we practice religion, there to profess it, the state has given the people right. So, state also has the duty to ensure that this right is being protected. In this scenario, in the stampede, it caused harm to the people. And now if we refer to the moot proposition, it is already written on the paragraph number 4 that the people, your ladyship, kindly refer to moot proposition, paragraph number 4, third line. In the aftermath, civil society groups, devotees, and concerned citizens approached the Allahabad High Court through public interest litigation under Article 226, seeking urgent judicial intervention. The people also know that this was their right of religion, so it would only be protected by the state. That is why they approached the High Court for the judicial intervention. Here, the state is abide to follow all the guidelines so that the article 25 and 26 would be protected. And on the basis of that, we have also presented an annexure in which how the guidelines, how will help the citizens uh, to make this project successful.
Right. That would be for Article 25 and 26. Moving on to Article 19(1)(g). What does the defendant proposes?
Moving on to 19(1)(g), to practice any profession or to carry any occupation, trade, or business. Right, your lordship, your ladyship? Your ladyship, in this, we have freedom, they have their freedom. But if we move on to the subclause 2, there is always a restriction. So state doesn't only talks about micro things. These were the micro, the 2 people death. This was an example that how this kind of situation would lead to a massive disaster. So to prevent we cause this, we have our duty, we have, and the citizens have certain restrictions on that.
As per Article 19(1)(g), somebody, a person, a citizen of India has the right to continue their trade or business. So those people who have been in and around the temple campus for the last, say, 100 or more than 100 years and have been continuing this business for centuries, and it is their legacy. How does the defendant proposes to protect their rights?
The reimbursement would be done, your ladyship,
Reimbursement of what?
of the property that has been used as for the development process. From many years the government has been taking the property from the people only, and if we talk about 191G, it also has an exception in subclause 6 of the article 19. It is here mentioned, nothing in subclause G of the said clause shall affect the operation of any existing law in so far as it imposes or prevent the state from making any law imposing in the interest of general public. Again highlighting, your ladyship, in the interest of general public, reasonable restrictions on the exercise of the right conferred by the said subclause or in particular.
Right. So the defendant, the state proposes that they will be protecting the rights of the devotees and the future devotees that may be coming to the temple. But what I would like to ask the defendant is, as per Article 19(1)(g), the trader, the businessman who has his business at that particular property for the last 100 years or more than that, how does the state propose that their rights will be protected here and after? They have a right to continue their trade or business. They might be earning thousands or lakhs of rupees per month. Does the compensation that the state is providing enough for them to continue and start again?
Your Lordships, I
Indeed.
would like to answer this.
Please.
Your Lordships, as mentioned in Annexure 1, page 20, the state undertakes all acquisitions or development shall be conducted in compliance with section 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31 of Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation, and Resettlement Act 2013. Your Lordships, here we are talking about the greater good. People are dying, and we have to restore Article 21, right to life. We are not saying that we will leave these people who have their jobs there or who are doing their businesses there. We will compensate them. We will equally see the devotees as well as the people who are residing there. We won't leave them hanging in between. We will give them fair compensation as stated by the law and the statutes.
Right. Very well. That was a really good answer, I have to say. You both have kept it up with both the explanation of the articles and understanding of the moot proposition and the facts given to you. Thank you.
Much
Your
obliged, your
ladyship.
ladyship.
Much obliged, Your Ladyship.
With the permission of bench, I would like the participants to kindly leave the room, and the judges will remain in the room. Please, participants, exit the room.
I request the court master to let us know the feedback from the honorable bench.
Speaker one, you are not audible. Could you please repeat the question?
I request the court master to please let us know the feedback from the honorable bench.
Okay. Bench, please. I request the bench to please give the feedback, the final conclusion feedback for the teams, for the council.
So, as I said earlier, that you have answered very well. Something I would like to suggest on a personal note, that when you are responding to any rebuttals or any judge's questions, you have kept up your answers with respect to what is written in the article, what is written in the moot proposition. Sometimes it is better, I would say it is good for the judge when you let them know that whatever you are rebutting, your rebuttal answer also has a judgment or a previous precedent to it. So if your rebuttal is also given with an example of a citation or a judgment or a reference to any judgment, that bolsters your arguments.
Indeed, your ladyship. We will be noting this point.
All right, as the feedbacks are done, so I request with the permission of our bench, I request the participants to just exit the room so that we can gather the scores card for the matter. Okay. Thank you.
we
Thank you, ma'am.
send
Thank you,
to
sir, for joining us.
Sure, please.
Now I'm exiting the room. Please exit.
Thank you.